They gave her a title the day she turned 18. Not the kind that meant something. The kind that meant nothing. Wolfless. That was the word the pack alpha used. He didn't whisper it. He didn't hesitate. He stood before the entire Veldara pack. And he said it like a verdict. Nira Ashvane has no wolf. No bond. No worth. The crowd was quiet. Not the quiet of shock. The quiet of agreement. She stood there in her ceremony dress. The white one her mother had sewn by candlelight. And she did not flinch. She had promised herself she wouldn't. She counted the stones in the floor instead. 1, 2, 3. She got to 9 before the pack alpha turned away. Just like that. She was done. Erased. The pack's lowest creature. Given no task. No rank. No place at the fire. What they didn't know, what no one in that hall knew, was that the man standing at the back of the room had watched the entire thing. He hadn't moved. Hadn't spoken. But his eyes had not left her once. Not when the pack alpha raised his voice. Not when the crowd looked away. Not when she pulled her thin shawl tighter. Like she could disappear inside it. He watched her count the floor stones. And something shifted in him. Deep. Dangerous. He was not supposed to be in Veldara. The Alpha King did not attend pack ceremonies. He had no reason to be there. No reason anyone knew of. But wolves feel things before they understand them. And his wolf had gone still. The kind of still that only happens when it recognizes something it has been waiting for. Without knowing it was waiting. She didn't look up. She never saw him. She only heard the pack alpha's final words. She will receive no rank. No place. No protection. And then she walked out. Alone. Into the cold. What she didn't know was that he followed. Not to offer pity. Not out of duty. Because his cloak was already in his hands. Before he had made the decision to move. His wolf had already decided. The morning after the ceremony. No one came for her. She hadn't expected them to. Nira Ashvane rose before the sun. Old habit. The kind you build when sleeping too long. Means someone finds a reason to punish you for it. She dressed in the dark. Same gray tunic. Same worn boots with a split sole. She'd wrapped in cloth to keep the cold out. It didn't work. It never worked. The Veldara pack house was loud by sunrise. Voices. Laughter. The smell of wood smoke and roasting meat. Drifting through walls she wasn't allowed past. Her stomach pulled tight. She didn't go in. They had left her assignment on the post outside. A folded scrap of paper. No name on it. Just a task. Clean the boundary fence. All of it. 14 miles. Alone. In the frost. She picked up the paper. Folded it smaller. Put it in her pocket. Next to the stone. A flat gray river stone, smooth on one side. She'd carried it since she was 9 years old. The day her mother told her. Asterisk, you don't need their approval to exist, Nira. You were here before them. You'll be here after. Asterisk. Her mother was gone now. But the stone remained. She wrapped her shawl around her shoulders. And walked toward the boundary line. The frost bit at her ankles. The path was empty. The pack was inside. Warm. Ranked. Wanted. She did not look back at the pack house. She had learned that lesson early. Looking back only reminded you of what you were not allowed to have. She walked. Spine straight. Eyes forward. The stone pressed cool against her palm. Through the fabric of her pocket. You were here before them. She held on to that. It was the only thing left. That was entirely hers. She heard them before she saw them. Hooves. Then silence. The kind of silence that falls when something powerful decides to stop moving. Nira didn't turn around. Boundary workers didn't turn around. Boundary workers kept their heads down. And their hands moving. And hoped whatever was coming passed them by. It didn't pass her by. You're working alone. The voice was low. Not a question. An observation. Like he was noting something. That troubled him. She turned slowly. He was tall in a way that changed the air around him. Dark riding coat. No pack insignia she recognized. A scar that cut across his jaw. Pale and old. Earned a long time ago. His eyes were the color of deep amber. Steady. Unbothered. Watching her. The fence needed cleaning, she said. I'm doing it. Simple. Flat. She gave him nothing extra. He dismounted without looking away from her. One of his men stepped forward. Instinctive. Protective. And he raised one hand. The man stopped immediately. Wolves didn't stop like that for ordinary men. He crouched beside the section of fence she'd been mending. Looked at her work. You've been at this since dawn, he said. She stared at him. How long have you been watching? He didn't answer that. He looked at her hands instead. The redness. The cold. Something moved across his face. Quiet. Controlled. But it moved. His jaw tightened. Just once. He straightened to his full height. And looked at her the way no one in Veldara had ever looked at her. Like she was worth looking at. What is your name? Nira, she said. I hold no rank. She said it the way she'd been trained to. Flat. Practiced. Preemptive. He was quiet for a long moment. Then. Low. Almost to himself. You will. They came the next morning. 3 of them. Pack enforcers. Sent by Pack Alpha Dravon himself. Nira was at the well. When they found her. You were seen, the first one said. Speaking to a stranger on the boundary road. She set the bucket down slowly. He spoke to me. Same thing. They moved her through the pack house. Like she was cargo. Not a person. Cargo. Pack Alpha Dravon was waiting in the main hall. Arms folded. Face arranged into something. Dad enjoyed this. A wolfless creature. Drawing attention from outsiders. He shook his head slowly. Do you understand how that reflects on this pack? She said nothing. You are an embarrassment, Nira. You have always been an embarrassment. He took a step toward her. I'm having you moved. To the outer settlement. No food allowance. No shelter provision. Effective today. The hall was full of witnesses. Every one of them. Looked at the floor. Nobody spoke. Then, the doors opened. No knock. No announcement. Just open. The man from the boundary road walked in. Behind him, 12 royal guards. In formation. And the room understood immediately. Pack Alpha Draven went pale. His mouth opened. Closed. Alpha King Soren. He dropped into a bow so fast. He nearly lost his footing. Alpha King Soren didn't look at him. He looked at Nira. At the enforcers standing too close to her. At the bucket still in her hands. Then, and only then, he looked at Draven. Under sovereign pack law, he said. Voice completely calm. This woman is under royal protection. Any order issued against her is null. Anyone who moves against her answers to the crown. He paused. Directly. Draven's mouth worked silently. Soren had already turned away from him. Back to Nira. Come, he said quietly. You're done here. They brought her to the royal healer. Nira didn't argue. She had stopped arguing with things she didn't understand. A long time ago. The healer's name was Orvain. Old. Small. Eyes that moved like they were always calculating something. 3 steps ahead. He circled her once. Twice. Said nothing. Then he stopped. Hold out your hand. She did. He placed his palm beneath hers. And closed his eyes. The room went very quiet. Alpha King Soren stood near the window. Still. Watching. Orvain's eyes opened slowly. He looked at Soren first. Something passed between them. Wordless. Heavy. Then he looked at Nira. You were never wolfless, he said. She stared at him. Child. What you carry is not the absence of a wolf. He exhaled slowly. You are a Valkyries. The word landed like a stone dropped into still water. It means, Orvain continued. Before she could speak. A soul born before its wolf manifests. The bond exists. It has always existed. But it waits. For the one it was made to match. He lowered her hand carefully. We believed the Valkyries line was gone. Ended 4 generations ago. He shook his head slowly. Apparently not. Nira's throat tightened. What does that mean? It means, Soren said. Quietly. From across the room. That your wolf was never missing. He moved toward her. Slow. Deliberate. It was waiting. As if in answer. The wolves outside began to howl. All of them. At once. Unprompted. Orvain made a sound under his breath. Something between wonder and vindication. They feel her, he murmured. They have always felt her. Nira looked at her own hands. The same hands. The pack alpha had called worthless. They hadn't changed. But somehow. Everything else had. He found her in the garden that evening. She hadn't gone looking for company. She had gone looking for quiet. The royal grounds were nothing like Veldara. Warm stone paths. The smell of cedar and something sweet. She didn't have a name for. Soren was already there. Sitting on the low wall. Like he had nowhere more important to be. She almost turned back. You don't have to leave, he said. Without looking up. She stayed. They sat in silence for a while. The comfortable kind. The kind she hadn't known existed. Between two people. Did you know? She asked finally. Before Irvain confirmed it. Did you already know what I was? He was quiet for a moment. My wolf knew, he said. The moment I saw you on that boundary road. And you? I was. He paused. Catching up. Something about that made her chest ache. In a way that wasn't painful. A small figure appeared at the garden entrance. Tomlin. Soren's ward. 7 years old. Serious face. A wooden fox carved small enough to fit in one fist. He walked directly to Nira. And held it out. You can hold it, he said. It's for people who need it. Soren went very still beside her. Nira took the fox carefully. It was warm from the child's hand. How do you know I need it? She asked softly. Tomlin considered this. With great seriousness. You hold yourself like it hurts to exist, he said. Soren used to do that too. Then he turned. And walked back inside. The garden was silent. Nira looked down at the carved fox in her palm. Soren said nothing. But his hand moved slightly closer to hers. On the cold stone wall. Just slightly. Not touching. Almost. Then. A guard appeared at the gate. Urgent. Your Majesty. Pack Alpha Dravon has filed a formal challenge. He's claiming the girl was taken. Under false royal authority. The warmth in Soren's eyes didn't disappear. It hardened. She overheard them at midnight. She hadn't meant to. She had only gotten up for water. 2 voices in the corridor. Soren. And his council elder, Marin. The challenge is legitimate, Soren. If Dravon takes it to the High Assembly. He won't. He already has. They're convening in 3 days. And they will ask you one question. Why her? A wolfless girl from a low pack. No rank. No bloodline record. No documented power. Silence. Irvain's findings are not yet verified by Assembly healers. Until they are. She is, on record. Exactly what Dravon called her. A long pause. If you stand for her now. Before verification. They will say you are compromised. They will challenge your crown, Soren. Not just her place here. Your crown. Nira stopped breathing. She pressed her back against the cold wall. There it was. She was the threat. Not Dravon. Not the Assembly. Her. She didn't wait to hear the rest. She went back to her room. Dressed in the dark. Same gray tunic. Same broken boots. She took nothing that belonged to the palace. Only the stone. She held it once. You were here before them. And then she set it on the windowsill. Left it there. She didn't need it anymore. She knew what she was now. She slipped out before dawn. She didn't see Soren. Standing at the end of the corridor. Watching her go. His hand pressed flat against the stone wall. His wolf. Howling. And his mouth. Saying nothing. Because Marin was right. But every part of him knew leaving her was the only thing he had ever done. That was truly wrong. The High Assembly convened at noon. Dravon stood at the center. Confident. Prepared. He had barely opened his mouth when the doors opened. Mira walked in. Not in gray. Not in worn boots. She walked in like someone who had finally stopped apologizing for existing. The assembly fell silent. She crossed the floor and stood before Draven and looked at him. The way you look at something you have already decided no longer has power over you. You called me wolfless, she said. You called me worthless. You said it in front of everyone. So it would stick. She tilted her head. It didn't. Draven's face moved in a way he couldn't control. Then Soren entered. He walked directly to Mira, removed his cloak in one motion, and placed it around her shoulders. In front of the assembly. In front of Draven. In front of everyone. She is Valkyrie's, he said. She is mine. And she is done being questioned. The room did not argue. Rooms never argue with certainty. Mira looked down at the cloak on her shoulders. Heavy. Warm. Hers. She did not cry. She simply breathed. For the first time. In a very long time. Without counting. The stones in the floor. The end. Not as a wolfless girl. Not as a creature of no worth. As herself. Unbroken. Undeniable. And finally, enough.